The clock has just struck on one of the most shocking twists in British politics. Keir Starmer has stunned the nation by stepping in front of cameras and announcing an urgent general election, sending shockwaves through Westminster and far beyond. It wasn't expected, it wasn't planned, and it certainly wasn't calm. This was a gamble made under the pressure of scandal, collapsing approval ratings, and a party tearing itself apart. But instead of restoring control, Starmer's sudden declaration has left Britain reeling. Protests are already gathering outside Downing Street, MPs are in chaos, and the public is demanding answers. The question echoing tonight is simple. Has Starmer just saved Labour, or has he signed its death warrant? The announcement came out of nowhere, cutting through the usual routine of political chatter with the weight of a hammer blow. Cameras rolled, journalists scrambled, and within minutes, Britain knew the election clock had started ticking. Keir Starmer, standing firm at the podium, told the nation it was time for the people to decide their future. But the urgency in his voice betrayed the truth. This wasn't confidence, it was desperation. Starmer didn't look like a man in control. He looked like a leader cornered by scandal, trying to wrestle back authority before it slips away for good. And the public could see it. Within moments of his words hitting the airwaves, social media erupted. The hashtags Resign Starmer and Labour Collapse began trending across platforms. Instead of inspiring faith, his announcement unleashed a tidal wave of fury and suspicion. Inside the Labour Party, the mood was no better. MPs were blindsided, many claiming they were given no warning about the sudden declaration. To them, this wasn't a bold democratic move. It was a reckless roll of the dice. Whispers of betrayal swept through the party halls, with senior figures furious that Starmer had dragged them into a fight they weren't ready for. The timing couldn't be worse. The £22 billion scandal continues to dominate headlines, with fresh allegations surfacing daily. Investigations by watchdogs are tightening, criminal probes are expanding, and the stench of corruption clings to the Prime Minister's office. For Labour MPs, this isn't just about an election, it's about survival. They fear being swept out of Parliament in one of the worst defeats in modern history. What was supposed to be a moment of unity has instead triggered panic, revolt, and open rebellion. Meanwhile, across the country, ordinary citizens are boiling with anger. Protesters have already gathered in central London, their chants echoing down Whitehall. They see this election not as a noble act of democracy, but as an escape hatch for a failing leader. To them, Starmer is buying time, using the vote as a shield against accountability. Placards reading, "Enough is enough," and "Starmer out" flood the streets, while online petitions calling for his immediate resignation surge past 500,000 signatures. For many Britons, tonight's announcement feels like the final insult. A Prime Minister under investigation for billions in missing funds is now asking the country for trust. The disconnect between the government and the governed has never felt wider. The opposition, sensing weakness, has pounced with deadly precision. Rishi Sunak's Conservatives wasted no time, hammering Labour with blistering statements within minutes of the announcement. "A man under investigation cannot lead Britain," one Tory MP declared, a line that was instantly picked up and repeated across major news outlets. Nigel Farage and Reform UK, smelling blood in the water, went further. "This is not an election, it's a cover-up," Farage thundered, promising voters that Reform would expose the truth Labour wants hidden. The opposition's messaging is clear, sharp, and devastating. Starmer is running, not leading. And behind the polished podium and forced calm, even Starmer's closest allies are rattled. Reports suggest frantic late-night calls in Downing Street, just hours before the announcement, with aides split on whether to move forward. Some argued for holding steady, buying time to contain the scandal. Others warned that the longer they waited, the worse the explosion would be. In the end, Starmer made the call alone. And now Labour is paying the price. Already, senior MPs are distancing themselves, crafting statements that look less like support and more like insurance for their own careers. What should have been a unified launch of Labour's campaign has instead revealed deep cracks. The sense of collapse is impossible to ignore. Polling agencies have begun rushing out snap surveys, and the first numbers are brutal. Labour's lead, once comfortable, has evaporated. Some polls now show the Conservatives pulling ahead, while Reform is surging in areas once thought safe for Labour. The ground beneath, Starmer is shifting fast, and the election he hoped would save him may be the very trap that destroys him. The public doesn't see a leader offering hope. They see a man clinging to power as the walls close in. Tonight's announcement was meant to reset the narrative. Instead, it's become the opening chapter in a far darker story. A story of a Prime Minister who gambled everything and may lose it all. If Section 1 was the moment of shock, Section 2 is the fallout. and the fallout has been nothing short of catastrophic. The shockwaves from Keir Starmer's sudden announcement have rattled not only Westminster but every corner of the country. Within hours, the story dominated front pages and rolling news coverage, each outlet framing the decision as a desperate gamble. Commentators described it as reckless, political insiders whispered about betrayal, and critics insisted that this wasn't an act of democratic courage, but an admission of weakness. Starmer's attempt to project authority has instead stripped him of the very control he sought to reclaim. Rather than a rallying point, the election call has become a lightning rod for anger, fear, and uncertainty. In Labour's own ranks, the atmosphere is poisonous. MPs who once defended Starmer are now questioning his judgment openly. The £22 billion scandal remains the dark cloud hanging over the party, and instead of clearing the skies, the election has made it loom larger. Many within Labour believe the Prime Minister has dragged them into battle with no weapons, no shield, and no strategy. Some MPs are already discussing alternatives in hushed tones, floating names of potential successors who might salvage what's left before polling day. Angela Rayner, Rachel Reeves, and even some unexpected backbench figures are being whispered about as emergency replacements. The fear is straightforward. If Starmer leads them into the election, Labour risks annihilation. But if they replace him now, the party risks imploding entirely. It is a lose-lose situation, and panic is spreading like wildfire. The financial scandal that ignited this crisis shows no signs of slowing down. Investigators from the National Audit Office and independent watchdogs are circling closer, demanding answers about the billions in public money that have seemingly vanished. What started as allegations of mismanagement has snowballed into whispers of corruption, fraud, and cover-ups. Each day brings new leaks, new revelations, and new names connected to the scandal. Starmer's closest allies, once considered untouchable, are being dragged into the mud. Questions about who knew what and when are becoming impossible to ignore. For the public, it feels like betrayal on a monumental scale. Taxpayer money lost, accountability dodged, and now an election announcement seen as a smokescreen to distract from the truth. On the streets, Britain is restless. Demonstrations have grown in size and fury, with protesters from Manchester to Birmingham marching under the same demand: accountability. The sense of betrayal is not confined to the opposition or party loyalists. It has spread to ordinary citizens who feel their voices have been stolen. Banners reading "We want answers" and "Starmer out now" dominate city centres. Meanwhile, online spaces have become battlegrounds of rage. Viral videos criticising the Prime Minister rack up millions of views overnight, while hashtags calling for his resignation refuse to fade from the trending lists. Petitions demanding immediate legal action against his administration are circulating at record speed, piling pressure onto an already cornered leader. The opposition has smelled blood and is attacking with ruthless efficiency. Rishi Sunak has framed the announcement as an admission of failure, arguing that Starmer is too weak, too compromised, and too dishonest to lead Britain forward. Nigel Farage has seized the moment, with even sharper rhetoric, branding Labour's move as an assault on democracy. Reform UK's message is simple but devastating. He is cancelling elections because he fears the people. This charge strikes at the heart of Britain's democratic values, and it resonates deeply with a public already disillusioned with politics. For many voters, it feels like the rules are being rewritten by a desperate Prime Minister. The cracks inside Labour are deepening by the day. Reports from behind closed doors describe frantic emergency meetings where MPs shout over each other about strategy, leadership, and damage control. Some demand Starmer step aside immediately, warning that clinging to him will guarantee disaster. Others argue that removing him now would plunge the party into chaos, handing the Conservatives an easy victory. The atmosphere is tense, bitter, and deeply divided. Loyalty is evaporating. MPs once united under Labour's banner are now retreating into self-preservation, preparing for defeat rather than fighting for victory. The trust between Starmer and his party is broken, and it may never be repaired. Polling data paints an even darker picture. Overnight, multiple surveys show Labour's once solid lead evaporating. In some constituencies, Labour trails not only the Conservatives but also Reform UK. Swing voters are abandoning the party in droves, citing scandal, mistrust and frustration. For a Prime Minister who once promised integrity and honesty, the collapse in public confidence is devastating. Analysts warn that if the current trend continues, Labour could face a wipeout not seen since the 1980s. For Starmer personally, the numbers are brutal. His approval rating has plunged to record lows, worse even than Boris Johnson's during the height of Partygate. But perhaps the most damaging element of all is the perception of weakness. In politics, perception is everything. Starmer wanted to appear decisive, bold, and in control. Instead, he looks panicked, cornered, and desperate. The public sees a leader who flinched under pressure. MPs see a leader dragging them into ruin, and the opposition sees an easy target. Every speech he makes, every press appearance he holds, only deepens the sense that this is a man fighting not for Britain's future, but for his own political survival. His words ring hollow, his promises feel meaningless, and his authority is crumbling by the hour. The election that was meant to be a turning point is now a countdown clock to disaster. Each passing day brings more revelations, more anger, and more instability. Instead of rallying the nation, Starmer has given his enemies exactly what they wanted, an opportunity to tear him apart in full view of the public. The clock is ticking, and for Labour it is ticking loudly. Unless something changes, the general election could mark not just the end of Keir Starmer's leadership, but the humiliation of a party once thought destined to govern. The gamble has been made, and already it looks like the cost will be far too high. The aftershocks of Keir Starmer's urgent election announcement are still rippling through every layer of British society, and the nation is only beginning to grasp the enormity of what has just unfolded. What seemed like a calculated political manoeuvre is now being described by insiders as a desperate gamble from a Prime Minister who can feel his grip on power slipping. Within minutes of Starmer's broadcast, senior political figures from all sides rushed to respond, each one framing the announcement as either a bold act of leadership or a reckless move that could plunge the country into further chaos. For millions of ordinary citizens, however, the sudden decision has left them grappling with fear, uncertainty, and the gnawing suspicion that something far deeper lies beneath the surface of this so-called election call. Starmer's declaration was delivered with urgency, but the question remains, why now and what is he trying to hide? Parliamentary insiders suggest that Starmer has been under immense pressure behind the scenes, not just from opposition parties, but also from growing divisions within Labour itself. Members of his own cabinet, according to multiple reports, had begun quietly voicing concerns about his leadership style, his economic policies, and the direction in which he was steering the country. Some claim his decision to trigger a snap election was less about strengthening democracy and more about silencing dissent before it could reach boiling point. By moving the timeline forward, Starmer has effectively forced MPs, activists, and voters into a high-stakes confrontation, leaving little room for preparation or resistance. To many observers, it looks less like confidence and more like panic, a last-ditch effort to cling to authority before events spiral beyond his control. The reaction from Reform UK was immediate and explosive. Nigel Farage, never one to mince words, described the announcement as the move of a frightened man who knows his days in office are numbered. His words echoed across social media, sparking heated debates about whether Starmer has miscalculated. Farage and his allies insist that the tide of public opinion has already turned decisively against Labour, citing rising discontent over immigration, crime, and economic stagnation. They argue that calling an election under these circumstances is political suicide, effectively handing them the momentum they need to mount their most aggressive campaign yet. And if the surge in support they've enjoyed in recent months is any indication, Reform UK may indeed be positioned to capitalise on this shock announcement like never before. Meanwhile, the Conservatives, though weakened and divided, have also sensed an opening. Senior Tory figures were quick to portray Starmer's move as proof of Labour's instability, claiming that the Prime Minister's announcement exposes cracks in the very foundation of his leadership. Some Conservatives, despite their internal struggles, believe they can rally voters by presenting themselves as the steady hand needed during this time of upheaval. But even within Tory ranks, there is unease. For years, they have watched Reform UK chip away at their base, and Starmer's sudden gamble could accelerate that erosion. In this volatile political climate, no party is safe, and every misstep will be magnified in the eyes of the electorate. Beyond the walls of Westminster, ordinary Britons are voicing raw emotion, fear, anger, and exhaustion. Many feel betrayed by yet another election that threatens to drag the country through months of political bickering while real problems go unsolved. Rising energy costs, collapsing local councils, crumbling infrastructure, and failing public services remain at the forefront of daily struggles. For these citizens, Starmer's urgent announcement is not seen as a bold democratic gesture, but as a cruel reminder that political elites are more focused on survival than solutions. Social media feeds are flooded with ordinary voices, asking the same questions. Why now? Why so suddenly? And what are they hiding from us? The lack of clear answers has only deepened suspicion, leaving the nation teetering on the edge of mistrust and anger. Even the monarchy has been dragged into the storm. Though Buckingham Palace has not issued an official statement, Reports from insiders claim King Charles was briefed mere hours before the public announcement, a move that has left some royal advisers privately seething. The palace has long sought to maintain neutrality, yet Starmer's sudden gamble has forced the crown into an uncomfortable spotlight. The symbolism of the king being pulled unexpectedly into political drama has only heightened the sense that the nation is entering uncharted territory. If Starmer thought his announcement would project strength, the unintended consequence may be the opposite. It has exposed weakness, uncertainty, and desperation at the very heart of government. In the days ahead, the battle lines will harden. Campaign strategies are already being drawn, war rooms are activating, and the media is bracing for one of the fiercest election seasons Britain has ever seen. Yet beneath the noise and fury lies a haunting reality. This is not just another political contest. It is a fight for legitimacy, survival, and the very soul of the nation. Starmer's sudden move has set forces into motion that may be impossible to control, and as events accelerate, the country finds itself standing on the brink of history, waiting to see whether this gamble will mark the rebirth of a struggling leader or the dramatic downfall of a prime minister who pushed his luck too far.